Hi, Stephen Austin here. I'm a parent, community member. I'm a financial professional with 2 children at MCPS schools currently, and glad to be here. Appreciate the time, and running to bring transparency, accountability, and true community engagement to the Board of Education. I support, I think, like a lot of the other candidates, to strive to close the achievement gap. I think that's one of the main objectives of MCPS, and I'm in full support of that objective. And I believe in using evidence-based, data-driven solutions for that. And I also believe that we should not be coming up with policy changes before the data is fully accounted for. And I'd love to also help the board manage its way through what I believe is going to be a financial crisis unlike any we've ever seen. And that's what I do for a living in terms of finance. So I look forward to speaking more on this.
Thank you. So let me just take a brief moment. There is someone trying to get in on a telephone number, and I know we have a couple of candidates that aren't in. So we need the name in order to admit them into this call. And so if anyone knows whose phone number ends with 3789, that might be someone we need to let in. Then I'll entertain that, but otherwise I'll remove them from the call. Okay, that was Stephen Austin. Steve Solomon. Otherwise, if you're not speaking, if you could keep your mic mute, that would be appreciated. Stephen Austin. I'm sorry, Steve Solomon.
Yes, that's me. Hi, I'm Steve Solomon. I'm a candidate for Board of Education District 4. All these candidates here are at-large candidates, except for Shebra and myself, so it's perhaps hard to distinguish us. So Steve Solomon, candidate for District 4 Board of Education. I'm a lifelong Montgomery County resident. I'm running for Board of Education to hopefully do the same thing that everyone here wants to do, is make our schools the best they could possibly be. That's my goal. I want to continue doing the great things the board has already been doing with Dr. Smith, and perhaps stop any mistakes and bad decisions that we make in the future. I know that with the coming fall presents challenges with perhaps the schools not opening up again and distance learning continuing, and a budget that is nothing like we've ever seen before. So I feel that I'd love the opportunity to be on the board and make decisions to help better make Montgomery County schools the best they could possibly be. I encourage you to go to my website, votestevesolomon.com, to learn more about me and my platform. And if you have the voter's guide, I'm the last entry on the last page, easy to find.
Lupin.
No worries, I'll get it. Hi, I'm Lumpun Thomas, candidate for at-large. I'm also a parent of an MCPS student. I moved to Montgomery County back in 2009. And for the past 11 years, I've volunteered in MCPS. Beginning the first day, my son began 2nd grade. For 11 years, I've volunteered and worked alongside educators, administrators, parents, and students. I am currently the president of my son's high school, all-school booster club, and I've served as a past president of PTSA, vice president. I've been the MCC PTA delegate for several years. And so I believe that, through my volunteer service, I've gained a unique perspective as to the support that our school needs. And I understand, firsthand the support that our students need to succeed. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Lynne Harris.
Hello, everyone. My name is Lynne Harris, and I'm an MCPS parent. I'm an MCPS teacher. And for the better part of the past decade, I've spent thousands of hours advocating in our school system for our schools and with and for our students and families. And through that work, I've gained a deep and wide understanding of our system and understand very clearly that we are not a single issue or a 2-issue school system. The number of issues that the school system has to address every single day to make sure that every one of our 166,200 plus students is thriving is vast. And I bring also my expertise as a nurse and a lawyer and a public health professional to this campaign, because I think we all see very clearly that as we move through a time of crisis, none of us knows exactly where we're going to find ourselves once we're able to begin again to move forward, where we can shake hands again, perhaps occupy the same physical space, and what that's going to mean for our schools and what economic impacts will have meant for our system. So somebody who's able to address at the first day on the board.
I'm sorry, Lynn, your time is up.
Thank you.
Jay Guan.
My check. We good? All right. My name is Jay Guan, and I'm running for the Board of Education at large. I have a 4-year-old son, and as a 10-year or 11-year resident of Montgomery County, I've volunteered my time as an education and transportation issue advocate. I've served on various Montgomery County MCPS advisory committees, and I'm running because I believe that all of our kids should have access to a good quality education. I grew up in an immigrant low-income family. I personally experienced the effects of the opportunity gap. I was fortunate enough to tread the upward mobile path. So I want all of our kids, especially those with fewer means, to be able to do the same. I'm running because I believe that we need to focus on a more vigorous STEAM curriculum. We are on the cusp of the fourth industrial revolution. Some say we are already in it. As someone who works in NASA and the FAA, I understand what it takes to help our kids to face these challenges and take advantage of the opportunity this revolution will bring. This pandemic has also showed us that we have to have proactive and forward-thinking and prudent leaders at the
Reverend, I believe your mic is muted.
I apologize. We got a lot going on here trying to make this happen. Michael Fryer's next. So Jay, I apologize. You didn't hear me saying your time was up.
Hey, hopefully you can hear me. Good. My name is Michael Fryer. I am a 30-year veteran of education and child advocacy. I actually started as a classroom teacher inner city, so I had to show up every day, work with my 6th graders. I've also taught in a suburban setting. I left education to become a social worker with Child Protective Services while I was in law school, and then proceeded to represent children as well as teachers, parents that were involved in education, IEPs, PPTs, as well as protective services and other issues. Represented parents actually involved in a school takeover as well. I have 2 kids in Montgomery County that I'm currently torturing at home, even though they're not in school. They're still in class, and I'm taking care of their education. As a member of the Board of Education, and I'm running in District 2, by the way, I'm also not an at-large candidate. What I bring to the table is that advocacy, that history in education, and the achievements I've got, and the understanding coming from a place that had an achievement gap, and with the subject of both a lawsuit, Chef O'Neill, and also a nationwide bestseller, The Children in Room 3E. So I'm bringing that experience down to this particular situation.
Your time is up, sir. So we have Paul Geller and Darwin Osorio. You guys did not hear the instructions, but you have 1 minute to introduce yourselves. So we're going first with Paul Geller. At 1 minute, I'd appreciate it if you would be done, and if you're not, I'll remind you, and then I'll mute you.
Thank you, Reverend Moultrie. Thank you, everyone, for watching. And by the way, thank you for all your good work in making sure that people with Nourish Now and MAN are able to distribute food from your church. It's very kind of you, sir. My name is Paul Geller, and since 2012, I've been a full-time advocate for our 166,300 MCPS students. It's a passion of mine. I love getting out there, and I love making sure the kids have what they need. When a member of the Board of Education several years ago said that they needed more money in the budget, I worked directly with the County Council and the Board of Education to get an additional $87 million into the budget in 2016. When our kids needed Chromebooks, something that 55,000 students are benefiting from today, I made it happen. I'm going to be on the Board of Education to listen to folks, to make things happen, and I'll always be there for you. Thank you.
Thank you. Della
Dalvin?
Dalvin.
There we go.
Yes, Dalvin, I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries, no worries. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be with you guys. Happy Tuesday. My name is Dalvin Osorio, and I am a former educator, current program manager, and career-long social worker. And I'm running because this is the next step in my career in helping folks. I got into teaching and became a social worker, both working with unaccompanied refugee minors, domestic violence victims, and medically fragile children, because my desire, my push was to help people. And it was to help children and families navigate some of these complicated systems that they're forced to navigate, that I think this pandemic in particular has laid bare for a lot of our families in our county. And I bring that unique experience of being in the classroom, but then also making policy and implementing policy that allows us to spend resources in an equitable fashion. So that's my goal, is to run and win this seat and bring that expertise to that position.
Thank you so much, sir. Appreciate that. So if I could just take one moment, I'm told that Rebecca is trying to get in. I don't have names for these, so I'm going to admit these folks one at a time and ask them who they are. If they answer and it's Rebecca, they can stay in. If not, they'll have to remove them. I just admitted you to the candidate forum. Can you please tell us who you are?
Hi, this is Mitra Ahadpour.
I'm sorry, say that again.
Mitra Ahadpour.
Okay, so you're an at-large candidate?
Yes.
Okay, now, okay, can you hold just one moment? Let me try this next one and see if that's Rebecca. Is this Rebecca?
This is still Mitra.
No, I'm sorry, the iPhone that just came in. Is this Rebecca?
Yes, hi.
Hi, okay, you guys didn't have names, so that's why you weren't admitted into the forum, so I apologize.
Oh, no, that's okay. I didn't know what that means by I didn't have names.
Yeah, when you sign on, it asks you for your name, and that's how we know you. So,
so sorry.
We're going to give you guys 1 minute each to to introduce yourself. So we'll start with Mitra. Mitra, you said?
Yes. Should I go ahead?
We'll go with Rebecca. You have 1 minute. At your minute mark, I'll let you know that your time has expired, and then if you haven't wrapped up, then I'll have to mute you so we can move on. Okay? Go ahead.
That's good. Let me know when I should start.
Right now. Thank you.
Okay. Hi, I'm Dr. Mitra Ahadpour. I'm running for the Board of Education at large because I know we can do better. I am a parent at Montgomery County Public School. I have years of advocacy experience. Have been an educator, and I'm a primary care physician. I am a first-generation immigrant. While in private practice in Montgomery County, I provided free medical care to patients who could not afford health insurance, and I volunteered and developed a curriculum for MCPS middle schools on the harmful effects of tobacco and presented it to them. And I also contributed in making Montgomery County smoke-free. My top priorities are having a safe school environment without drugs, which is rampant right now, bullying, hazing, and providing mental health services, increasing the achievement of all students and closing the opportunity gap, and increasing transparency in decision-making and communication. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Rebecca?
Yes. Hello?
Yes, if you could go ahead and introduce yourself. You have 1 minute.
Yes, hi. Sorry, I'm Rebecca Smondrowski. I am currently on the Board of Education. I represent District 2, and I'm running for re-election. I believe that every student deserves a positive school experience, and that means different things for everyone. It's not just about getting A's and B's, but it's also about differentiated learning, being engaged, feeling safe, valued, and included. We are a county of vast diversity, and I have dedicated the last 7 years to being a strong voice for our students, our staff, and our community, and I'm running to continue that advocacy work.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. You know, a few of you guys, I owe y'all some time. You guys were short, and I appreciate that.
That's okay. No worries.
And I appreciate that because we calculated the time based on 13 instead of 14. 14 candidates now. So we're going to dive right into the questions and answers. Are you ready to put the first question up, AJ? I'm going to read the question to you. And for this question, our SMEs tell us that it's a little bit challenging. So we're going to give you 2 minutes each to answer the question. And we're going to go in the same order that we just went in. So the first question is, how will you address the underlying structural system that continues to identify Black, Brown, and socioeconomically disadvantaged students, particularly boys, for these programs? What can you tell us about the effectiveness/ineffectiveness of these programs to our students? Are you open to changing long-standing policies related to this, provided there is research and data to justify doing so? Sunil, you're up first. You have to unmute yourself.
How do you mute yourself?
Sunil?
Yes. We have a significant problem in the school system where we've been talking about the achievement gap and the structural conditions that have led to the achievement gap. One of the ways in which we have tried to address it is through redistributing resources, whether through the Title I programs and other approaches. I think because of the fact that this has been continuing for such a long time, we really do need to think through what it is that we are trying to achieve. One of my platforms talks about trying to reduce class sizes. I think one of the biggest problems we have is that students and teachers are unable to develop a relationship that can be leveraged to achieve better outcomes for high poverty students. And so my goal is to bring more, if we could have more teachers and smaller class sizes, those relationships will improve and we will have a much better way of outcomes, I think. The second part I think I want to emphasize is there's a relationship between performance gap and how we distribute resources. And right now we are distributing resources inequitably across the county. We have to find ways in which to do much better on this. I find, there's a controversy going on about changing school boundaries, and that has to do ultimately with making sure that resources are properly allocated and equitably allocated across the county. Were you trying to get me to stop, or?
Yes, thank you, Sunil. I couldn't unmute myself. Next is Ms. Deborah Evans.
Sure. Thank you for that question. Thank you for that question. This is from AJ. I will start by saying one of the ways that we can help ensure that our Black and Brown students are not economically disadvantaged is to do what the system is currently doing, which is provide an early start for our learners, and that's having access to a pre-K programs, high quality pre-K programs. We have been able to take our half-day programs and make them full days, over 1,000 students within the last 2 years. We have we have two early learning centers that we have put in the downtown Silver Spring area, as well as in the Gaithersburg area. We know that if we give our kids an equal playing field, that will help. One of the other things that we are doing is we are really steeped in restorative practices. It will make a big difference if the adults as well as the students are really developing those relationships. When people know our students, it helps to ensure that our first instinct is to not put our students at a disadvantage. So restorative practices is really huge in the school system, but we're currently working on to ensure that, in the event that our students in the event that there's an infraction, that they can kind of repair themselves, that they can sit down and own up to their mistakes, and that they're able to personally take ownership of their conflicts, but at the same time, they're able to make amends with an individual or a school building or anyone in the community that they've set in on a negative pathway. So we're really trying to make certain that we're doing all that we can to help support our students, and that's providing more access and more opportunity for our students at a very early age.
Okay, your time's up. Thank you so much. Look, to help you guys out, so when you have about 15 seconds left, I'm going to raise my hands up, okay? So I'll do that to try to help you out. I apologize for not thinking of that earlier. Next, we have Cameron.
So I'm one of the few candidates in the at-large race who's firmly in the pro-boundary analysis camp. I trust there will be more time to talk about that later. One of the things I like about this question is that it says, provided there is research and data to justify doing so. So I'm a scientist. I have a master's in biotechnology. So I'm used to making data-driven decisions, looking at the primary literature, and making decisions based on that. So that's something that I would be very comfortable doing as a Board of Education member. I think it's very important to know how racism works and not just say racism as a vague concept. For example, one study that always sticks in my mind is one that talks about finding that Black and brown children are often punished to greater extents and more often because they are perceived to be older. So understanding how these things work can help us get to the root of the problems.
Okay, you're done, Cameron?
Yeah, thanks.
Thank you. We'll go to Anil.
So this is a very interesting question, and I'm glad that it has been asked. I, as a former military person, enlisted and commissioned, I've seen endemic structural issues not only in the military but in combat zones where I've served. So there's a saying that folks are prisoners of geography and history, but how do you break that bubble? And it starts with identifying the path to success. So for that, what that means to me in short is, first of all, you have to provide people, children, hubs of emotional, physical, psychological, and spiritual safety. You have to provide these children safe zones in which to thrive. Then on top of that, you have to add mentors that relate. So that means mentors that had the same life experiences that they did. And then the third thing is you got to enrich, which means you got to give them a head start, an early start into opportunity, into life. And that in itself is that sustainable path to production. So we talk about not just giving people 15 extra points and putting them in a program they're not qualified for. We're talking about setting up this sustainable ecosystem from which they can grow, thrive, and be spiritual, psychological, physical, and emotional members of society. Thank you so much.
Thank you for that. Next, we have Stephen Austin.
Hi. So this is a great question, and I, as a former disadvantaged student growing up, I can absolutely relate to this. I grew up with a single father who lost his job during the oil recession in Texas in the 80s. And so there's a lot of similarities, I think, to what some families are going through right now. And I went to 3 different schools in 7th grade as he hopped around looking for work. So I know some things about this, and I know one of the things, and I think Chaudhry said it well, we need to make sure that these kids are fed and taken care of first. I mean, that's just baseline. And I think, to start talking about some of the effectiveness of programs and how we can maybe start to address some areas of focus, I think we need to enable our staff to be effective, our teachers, our principals, I think MCPS needs to do a better job of this and really focus on it more. Not that they aren't focusing on it, but I think we need to really make it a priority beyond where it is right now, because that's how you get schools that can deliver excellence and can address a lot of the issues that students struggle with. And am I open to policy changes? Absolutely. I mean, that's why I'm running. I'm trying to bring a breath of fresh air to the board. I'm a parent. I have a lot of great ideas. I have a deep network, and I also have the skills to manage our budget so that we can hopefully find funds to make this kind of stuff happen, because I know we're going to have a really hard time in the next year or two if this economy doesn't open back up.
Oh, you're done? Thank you.
Thank you.
Steve Solomon.
Thank you. To answer the question, yes, if there's research and data to show that a longstanding policy should be changed, I hope everyone's answer is yes, we're willing to change it. If follow the data, as we've heard in the news the last few months here. So of course, that's something I would believe in. My ideas are to make all schools great. People say this is a good school, this is a bad school. Why isn't every school great? That's my question. We certainly have the resources and ability to do that. And if you make every school great, you put every student in the opportunity to succeed at their school by expanding programs like vocational programs that we have at limited schools right now, like retaining teachers, which has been a problem with the county recently. We have great teachers, of course, but we need to do better. We need perhaps mentorship programs from veteran teachers to younger teachers to tell them, hey, this is a great place to work and a great place to live. Stay a teacher, make the pay better, make the benefits better for all the workers, not just the teachers in school. Perhaps show Black and brown students that you could be a teacher as well if you want to here in Montgomery County, because it's a great job to have. And perhaps schools could introduce programs that way to show the students that this is a job you can do. So I think it's a lot of the things that we can introduce around all schools to make them better that way, to perhaps change any problems and help all disadvantaged students that are currently that way. Thank you. You're still muted, Reverend.
Thank you. Next we have Lupani. Lupani?
Lumpen.
Lumping. I'm going to get it right before we're done.
No worries. It took my husband 6 months to learn my name, so I won't hold you to that. So the underlying structural system. So again, I would agree, with what I'll say Ms. Evans, because I don't want to mispronounce her first name, that, access to early childhood education is important for children, especially those who live in areas of high pockets of poverty. But I would also say that I believe that there should be, multiple access points for students to, access rigorous coursework. I realized back when my son was in elementary school, we moved here, he was in 2nd grade, and he was, in the on-level learning, which was fine, but it seemed that, and because I kind of followed all these kids, for 11 years, that those who began maybe on level or even below, that was kind of their trajectory all throughout high school. So I believe we should allow or provide additional or more access points to rigorous coursework. And I want to say that we need to address like the whole child. So learning occurs, my belief, learning occurs outside of the classroom as well. So the factors that happen outside of the school affect the learning inside the school. So I believe that we need to address the whole child, and provide, maybe healthcare, additional services. I believe I read or heard that in the fall, we're going to have, a community school. So I think community schools are good are, should be in like every area where there's pockets of poverty. Thank you.
Thank you, Lumpani. I was just mentored, so I can say your name now, Lumpani. Thank you.
No, it's Lampoon.
Lampoon. Y'all told me wrong. I tried. Okay, I'm sorry. Lynne. Lynne.
Thank you. This is an issue and a question that has deeply impacts so many of our students, and we have so many systemic issues that we have to deal with if we are going to really and truly and permanently improve issues of underperformance by our Black and brown students and implementation of true evidence-based best practices to help every one of our students succeed. Right now we have concentrations of poverty, we have de facto segregated schools, we have true issues with disproportionality of discipline and disproportional referrals, school-based referrals for education, for special education services, all directed at our Black and brown students. And, we have to look at what can we do now and what do we need to do that will help us improve in the long run. And what we can do now, I think we need to really hone in on our system-wide training on microaggression, cultural competency, and really double down on our whole school implementation of trauma-informed practices and restorative justice in every one of our 208 schools. Along with that, I think we need to look at our processes for entering any student into our more rigorous coursework. And that includes making entry into many of our courses completely blinded and wholly objective. And I would like to see us consider a process by which for every rigorous course of study, any student who satisfies entry criteria is automatically admitted, and then they themselves can decide whether or not they want to pursue that course of study, not the other way around, which is the way it happens so often now. We also need to, of course, double down on pre-K education. Investment in that will improve outcomes for all children, but that's in the future.
Thank you, Lynne. Michael Fryer.
So I'm not sure from the question, I might have missed something, what programs that this is referring to. So I'm just going to speak in general. I do have an issue with the question, and it is this. It refers to Black and brown, which gives the wrong population the wrong impression that somehow the amount of melanin in your skin or the language you speak at home has a negative impact on your ability academically, which is an abhorrent thought. The issue is poverty, and that the county has historically and systemically created a situation where minorities vastly represent the amount of poverty here, and that has to be dealt with. Academically, it's the research and data is already there. Reduce schools to less than 50% farms. I taught inner city. I had a student come in one morning. I had a large number of students with populace, with this one in particular. She was exhausted. I sent her down to the nurse. I taught my class, sent her the special, went down to check on her. She had been actually at home. A gang had come into the building, and she had spent the whole night under her bed, cowering, afraid she was going to be assaulted. If it was a suburban school, sure, we have support and resources for her. But in an urban setting, I had 31 students. I had 31 students with those problems. The school was overwhelmed. This is not an academic issue. It's a matter of resources, and it's a matter of the impact that poverty has in the academic setting. Just because you're a farm student doesn't mean you're a less capable student, but it does mean in a large population, the system cannot handle the problems that stem from poverty, and that's where we need to focus our attention. Thank you.
Thank you. Paul Geller.
I think one of the most important things that we can do, Reverend Moultrie, is to actually be out in the community and talk to people one-on-one. One of the nicest things that I've done in the past few months was visiting your church and serving a Christmas meal to members of the Lincoln Park and outside communities. And I didn't get to do too much service because you found out that I was an activist in the community, and you knew that a lot of people had questions. And that's what I've been doing since 2012. I've been an ear. I listen to what people have to say. I try my best to feel what they are feeling and then take action upon that. Several ways that I've done that were over the past 4 years, I've helped manage to get more than $462 million additional dollars into the school system and the operating budget funds to fund many initiatives. I think we still have a long way to go. I certainly agree with Shebra Evans when she talks about nursery schools. I mean, as somebody who served on the board of a nursery school, small little nursery school just a block away from Carver Center, I saw how wonderful the education the kids were getting at the age of 2, 3, and 4 was, and I see the detriment of kids who do not receive that. Another thing that's important to mention here, and it goes to listening, is we have a wonderful coalition called the Black and Brown Coalition. And I have been not only a staunch advocate, but a member of this coalition. I was invited to join. And they're putting together proposals to lock, stock, and barrel, make sure that all of our students are treated equally. And that's vital. It shouldn't be just people who are well informed. We also have another wonderful group called Bond Educators, building our network of diversity. These are young male African-American educators who are just getting started in the career field, and they have people to work with them and help them guide the system.
Thank you, sir. Your time is expired. Next is Dalbin.
Thank you, Reverend. So the easy part of this question is, are you open to changing longstanding policies related to this, provided there's data? The answer is yes. The top part of the question, until we openly talk about what this is and call it what it is, then we're always going to dance around how to solve it, how to really deal with the nitty-gritty of this issue, which is that the boundary lines in Montgomery County were drawn in order to hoard resources away from the Black and Brown students and the Black and Brown families. And until we redraw those boundaries, there's always going to be inequity when it comes to resources given to these families. I'm a program manager now for the Children with Intensive Needs program at the Collaboration Council. And I went back and looked at 2 years worth of data to see how we were getting our referrals from MCPS from the local hospitals. And they were 70% Black and Brown students who were having issues with accessing resources at MCPS, and their families had no idea of where in the community to go to access these resources. It is structural racism that has continued to keep Black and Brown students, particularly boys, as you mentioned, Reverend, from accessing resources that they need in our county. Yes, we need to expand pre-K services across the county to make sure that all students can access that, so that way they don't start in kindergarten 2 or 3 grades behind their more affluent peers. But we also need to invest in trade careers, so that way the students that decide they don't want to go to college, because it's not a capability issue, it's the fact that they haven't been invested in from the moment they stepped foot in MCPS. We need to change that as well. We always talk about that it takes a village to raise a kid, right? If it takes a village, what are we doing to create these healthy villages so that way our kids can then go into MCPS and perform up to their ability? I think it's a joke that we continue to not call it what it is. It's structural racism that's impacting Black and Brown families in our county, and we need to start by calling it what it is, and then we can talk about the policies that are necessary to change that. And
are you done? Thank you for that, Jay Guan.
Hi, so I would echo the other candidates in saying that definitely access to pre-K will be a vital strategy in addressing the issues raised here. I think also access to wraparound services in our community schools are important. So as some of the candidates already mentioned, that a lot of our disadvantaged students don't have access to even basic health services. So I think a community school concept where wraparound services is provided to these students is of particular interest and an effective strategy. Now, in terms of access to vigorous programs, so we certainly have to change the way in which to do things, and that is universal screening. So we put the onus, the system that we have now put the onus on students to find out how to get access to these programs. We should change the universal screening and automatic promotions, where if you make the grade, you will be included and notified of your qualifications. Another thing that should be addressed in terms of access to vigorous programs is cultural competency and implicit bias. So in general, we should rewire the system such that it can filter out these implicit biases. Lastly, I think we should also diversify the teacher workforce. Our students of color will definitely benefit from having a positive model who looks like them. So diversifying the teacher workforce will definitely help toward that end. And lastly, I think access to experienced teachers is also an effective strategy that we should look into. So as in the Black and Brown Coalition's 3 A's, the first one is we need to make sure that our Black and Brown students, our socioeconomically disadvantaged students, have access to experienced teachers. And yep, that'll be all.
Thank you, sir. Next is Mitra.
We use evidence-based decision making. We use data to make decisions in our work, but I think that's what we need to shift a little bit with MCPS. Looking at through evidence-based practices on how to close the opportunity gap. So to my thinking is that we know that fostering inclusion, diversity, equity, and civility benefits all students. That's a given. Now, from evidence-based research, we know that students of color receive particular benefits from teachers, staff, and administrators of color, and are more likely to graduate from high school. So one thing is to look at how do we improve our recruitment of teachers, staff, and administrators of color by recruiting from underrepresented groups. I agree with the other candidates. We need to build a strong foundation early by looking at how do we improve from pre-K to get children to have that strong foundation through evidence-based practices. We know that removing language or cultural barriers, it will help. But we should always go back to getting to the basic needs of students. So in my thought is that if a student has issues with clothing or food or having not a safe environment, so the safe environment can be outside, but also in schools. So I've gone to many schools, and what I'm seeing is that we still have a lot of drug use. Kids are being pushed to use drugs. The peer pressure is a lot. There's a lot of drugs that are being sold in schools that no one is responding to. The teachers are looking the other way.
Your time has expired. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, and lastly, Rebecca.
Yes, hi, thank you. So this is a great question, but it's a very complex question. And I basically agree with everything that's already been said. So I don't want to come across as being repetitive, but you know, some of the things that really stand out for me personally, proactively building relationships with students is the most impactful method in allowing students to feel safe and connected. And, you know, making sure that our staff and our employees and stuff know and understand our students and our families and their stories and make those strong connections. Really pushing the continuing and expansion of cultural diversity training is key. We've also, you know, it's been touched on about the early education. We know that the greatest impact in learning equity comes from an early start. So making sure that we're doing everything we can to provide those opportunities. The wraparound services are so important because we also know that so many of our families, particularly those that live in poverty, need additional supports that go so far beyond the classroom, and we have to do everything that we can to provide those. Having more teachers of color, that's huge. People do need to see themselves reflected in the people that they consider to be leaders and educators. And I've been really pushing very hard over the years to continue to grow our own teachers and administrators. I think that we could provide scholarship opportunities for kids to be able to go to college, not as a payback, but as a let us pay forward for you to be able to go on to get a higher education and then come back and work for us and put in time at MCPS to make that work for us as far as a financial equity aspect goes. Sorry, I'm speaking quickly because I don't want to run out of time, but we need to, I agree that all of our schools need to be, you know, ones that any parent, any family would be proud to send their children to. There's a difference between equity and equality, and we need to make sure that.
Rebecca, thank you. Your time's run out.
Oh, sorry. Okay, thank you.
So the next question, and I really appreciate you guys. You've done a fantastic job bearing with us. The next question came straight from our viewers on YouTube or Facebook. I haven't seen it yet, so I'm a little bit nervous. Question number 2, we expect all students to perform at high levels. What is your assessment of the current state and how the school district has handled student learning in spite of the pandemic? Moving forward, what measures should the district put in place to address potential problems in the future? We're going to go in the same order. Sunil, you're first. And you have, 1 minute to answer this question.
Thank you. The pandemic and the has brought severe challenges to where we are as a school district. If you look at the school where we are, we've done some very good things, and we've not been able to do other things. So, for example, I think with the distribution of the Chromebooks and meals and even the Wi-Fi, we've done a fairly good job. Though I think there are some students that are still outside they haven't reconnected yet. I think the problem is that in the transition from face-to-face classroom to online education, that transition is very, very hard to do. And what I would say is that we need to have a certain amount, we need to have expectations that are different from what we have now, that we need to.
Thank you, Sunil. Your time is up. Ms. Shebra Evans.
Sure, thank you. So I've been able to see firsthand the work that has been taking place behind the scenes. I am proud of the work that I have seen happen thus far, considering this is something that we have never experienced nor could we have predicted would happen. The continuity of learning has come out in phases to give not only our teachers, but parents an opportunity and students an opportunity just to kind of take a hold of what's taken place, to get their grounds, to get their bearings. The board's priority has been to ensure that what we want to happen inside the school walls is what's happening through distance learning, is that our students are getting a robust learning opportunity as well as getting the many services that they're used to. Communication has gone out on a daily basis to our parents, letting them know in advance what we're doing. So I just say that I'm really proud that we are also being mindful of mental health of our parents during this time. So I appreciate our parents' understanding, and we'll revise and do our plans along the way.
Thank you so much. Cameron.
There's one candidate in the at-large race who's, I think, is most uniquely qualified to tackle the intersection of a public health emergency and education, and it's not me, it's Lynne. She's a nurse and a teacher. With that being said, like I said before, I have a master's in biotechnology, so I would be very, very well suited to be looking at the primary literature and handling something like this if I were elected to the Board of Education. I think that there's a lot that we're doing well. I think that the board should stay all ears, continuing to seek input from students, parents, teachers all over the county, because down county issues can be very different from up county issues, and just vigorously seeking input and continuing to stay responsive.
Thank you so much, Cameron. The next we have Anil.
Thank you for this good question. And I'd also, first of all, echo, I'm really pleased to see everybody in the county working together to support our students in the time of need. We're the 14th largest school district in the country. And, for those of us with short memories, I would like to point out that the school system did get a Malcolm Balbridge National Quality Award for their pandemic response in 2010. So, this is something that we should have foreseen as in the MCPS administration. This is something that we should have reacted to a little faster. We definitely should have mobilized our logistics supply chain a little bit faster. And even with education now, with online education, we have this thing now where our.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Stephen Austin.
Okay. This is a 100-year event, so let's just start with that. The last time we had something like this was, 100 years ago. I don't want to be critical of what MCPS has been able to achieve. I think they've done the best with what they've had, and appreciative of what they've accomplished. My own children are making it work, but I think we all admit, anyone who's had that experience, that it's not a true replacement for sitting in the classroom. And I think we were caught flat-footed by this. I think we need to, whenever we can get our bearings, we need to make sure that this kind of situation never happens to MCPS again in the way that it did. We need to, I firmly believe there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs that come out of this with new products that can merge that gap for remote learning. And I think we should be really examining that. We should be talking to venture capital. We should be talking to other entrepreneurs that are out there. I know some companies that already do this kind of work. And I believe that we can be prepared for this in the future. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Thank you so much. Steve Solomon.
Yes, thank you. None of us were prepared for this, students or adults. Could you imagine doing Zoom 8 hours a day? It's probably difficult. I would think for students sitting at home all day in front of a computer, it's nothing like they expected at school, especially, and these are children. They're not used to sitting that way all day, every day. So everyone can assume that learning will be lessened. It'll be much more difficult to teach students that way. But all we can do is compare ourselves to what other districts have done. A neighboring county in Virginia has had massive IT issues, has had to abandon their Blackboard program. I believe we've done a great job with, as Sunil mentioned, the Chromebooks to all the kids who need it. Comcast and others have stepped in with the basic internet access for those who don't have it. Over 1 million meals given out by the county. The amazing public partner and private partnerships that have developed and taking care of our students. I think we're doing a fantastic job. I'm not going to rip the board or Dr. Smith because they're doing great. And I'd love to be a part of the board to be able to do this and work with all the council members and the county government to make this a success in these tough times.
Thank you so much. Your time has expired. Ms. Thomas.
Hi. Thank you. So I shouldn't say this because a few have already on the of our candidates said, but so I'm an attorney by trade, and recently I work for the FDA. I'm a regulatory counsel, but prior to working for FDA, I worked at FEMA, where I wrote policy guidance. And so for like 5 hurricane seasons, I had the opportunity to see the high level planning done at headquarters, across the government. We had the vice president, we've had all the senators. The level of coordination, it was very awe-inspiring to me every time because it was just so nice. But then 2 months later, when I'm like boots on the ground in Texas after Hurricane Harvey, it's not the same. So I just want to say quickly, I would not criticize the board for what they did. The only recommendation I would have is that they do an after-action report and maybe improve on any areas. Thank you.
Lynne.
Thank you. Well, as a teacher and a parent, I was very grateful that the first thing that as a system we did after the onslaught of the pandemic was to make sure the basic needs of our students were taken care of. And that we were focusing on, when we resumed learning, was everyone all right? I think one of the things we need to do moving forward, right now we're just focusing on continuity of learning, keeping our students moving forward in whatever areas of endeavor they're taking part in. But as we do the hot wash, some of us have already been mentioning that when we look at what we've done, where our planning fell short, and we start planning for the future, I think we need to be very, very aware that we are going to have a solid plan in place to deal with learning recovery once we're back in school. And we are going to have to be, I think, prepared that the economic realities that we find ourselves in means we could have an unexpected growth in enrollment like we did after the 2008 recession.
Thank you, Lynn. I appreciate that. Michael Fryer.
So my mother is distance learning and has been doing distance learning for over 20 years for the University of Arkansas and now Louisiana State University, where she is a department chair. I was a software consultant for Plato Learning doing distance learning. I also created distance learning programs for the Commission on Human Rights and Opportunities, as well as the state college system for Connecticut. I have a vast amount of experience in this, including having been an administrator at a company and created an entire online program for trade and college systems. I give the district an A. They've done a phenomenal job. The fact that they're able to turn on a dime and get out everything that they could, just logistically, because I've had boots on the ground in situations, I've also had the higher level on this. So I can tell you that this was a difficult situation and the response is phenomenal. The only caveat I've got is kind of before in the 2 weeks, communication with parents, and now after, it's not consistent. You know, teachers there are few students should be reaching out, say, hey, how are things going at home and what's happening? But that's the only criticism I've got.
Thank you so much, sir. The time has expired. Paul Geller.
I, for a long time, have been an advocate of MCPS broadening their availability of programming for in-home use for all of our students, for students who want to get ahead, for students who may want to excel a bit, or students who want to get a fundamental understanding of the material. I actually have a son who has been on interim instructional services now for 2 years, IIS, and they provide home-based education through online service. Now, this could be expanded. No one could have predicted what had happened to be this grave. That said, we need to expand the IIS offerings and really build upon them and have our IIS professionals work with our current teachers to figure out the most apropos way of getting the curriculum delivered into all the homes in our county.
Thank you, sir. Dalvin.
So I think one, hats off to MCPS for doing what they could have done in the face of a pandemic. I think one of the things that nobody's mentioned is our students with disabilities who have IEPs and just can't receive the services that are listed on their IEPs during this pandemic. They can't receive occupational therapy, physical therapy, any of these things. It can't happen. And I think one of the things that I've learned as a foster care social worker and as a program manager is always planning for the worst, right? So that way we're not caught flat-footed. I'd rather have it and not need it than need it and not have it. And I think what this pandemic continues to lay bare for a lot of us is just that in our county, there are still a lot of inequities and our kids are going to return to school with learning deficits. And we're going to have to play catch up across the board for all of our students to reach the potential that they should receive. So I expect them to perform at a high level, but I think you have to value student voice and use their voice to find out what worked and what didn't work during this time.
Oh, you're done. Thank you. Jay.
Jay, I think you're still on mute.
So as I was saying, I think MCPS has done a phenomenal job in the face of the problem of the scope, in the time frame that they're pressed with. So I think they have done a phenomenal job. However, I think that moving forward, we're going to have to absorb some of the lessons learned from the implementation of remote learning. So as we can see, there are a lot of inequities in our school, and there are some students who simply do not have access to internet, and so the implementation and access is definitely skewed toward the families with more means. Now, I think after all of this, we have to start exploring year-long school, and also put in place a emergency plan or a disruption plan for future events such as this.
Done? Done. Thank you. Mitra.
I think the MCPS and Board of Education did an amazing job to distribute the Chromebooks and address the basic needs of students, which food I think is extremely important. However, I think this is an unusual situation, but it has caused learning loss. We have our children, their emotional well-being has been affected, and many have seen the economic burden on their families. So the long distance learning has not happened, and that's the reality. Many schools that I've looked at the schools, some have had it, but many schools, they just get one email on Monday mornings. They tell them, go and find the answers to these questions. The rest of the week, the kids go online trying to find answers. So there is nothing Zoom from morning to afternoon. Many schools are not having that. My recommendation is right now, not later. Right now, be proactive. Let's come up with a transition plan, but involve the community within it. Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Yeah, hi. Thank you. So, this has been an unprecedented situation. I think that I know our superintendent and the staff have worked hard to kind of build the plane as we fly. And I give them so much credit for that. I'm very appreciative of the teachers and staff who have shown so much compassion and dedication to their students through all of this and all of the extra work that has gone in. There have been a lot of challenges, of course. These are new times and, likely not to go away anytime soon. It's my hope that we can learn from the challenges that we faced in this transition to remote instruction and use the experience to improve MCPS's virtual learning. I have been and continue to be a strong advocate for increasing the online learning opportunities for our students in an effort to allow better success to greater variety or better access, to a greater variety of curriculum options and courses. I think that this experience has shown us where our greatest needs are so that we can better address the issues that we face, such as the distribution of Chromebooks, which has been extremely challenging. I think that every kid should have them every year.
Your time has expired. Thank you.
That's fast.
So, listen, as we look at the clock, unfortunately, we don't have time for another question, but there have been so many good questions presented, dozens of questions, and we're going to compile those and email those to you guys. If you'd like to provide answers in written form, we can post them on our website along with this forum that will be posted. I'd like to find a way to invite you guys back for a conversation. I think you guys have done a tremendous job, but I'd really like to have a conversation, not just listen to question and answers, but because you guys raised some things that I think need some further discussion. But I thank you so much. We're going to give each of you 1 minute for a closing remarks, and then we're going to have some comments from Ms. Anita Neal Powell, who put this together along with me, and we'll move on. So let's continue in the same order. Sunil, you're up first.
Well, thank you so much for your time and your questions and for organizing this. Once again, my name is Sunil Dasgupta. I'm a parent, I'm a PTA leader, I'm a professor, and I have experienced MCPS from different angles. I believe we will need very strong leadership to fight the coming challenges that we have, including, I think, budgets. We have a growing problem of unequal access. We talked about special ed, but others as well with respect to high poverty kids and reaching them. I think it's going to be an issue for mental health of students who are stuck at home and are facing, with families that are facing income losses. So the coming years are going to be very, very challenging. We will need wise and patient leadership. And I ask you for your vote in this mail-in election and for us to work together for the future.
Thank you, Sunil. Your time has expired. Ms. Deborah Evans.
Sure. I just will leave everybody with the mission of MCPS, which is to make certain that every student leaves with the academic, social, emotional, and creative problem-solving skills to be productive in college, career, and in particular in their community. This COVID-19 crisis has really laid bare the inequities, not only in our county, but also in our state and throughout the country. At this point in time, we need leadership that is committed to equity and excellence, that has a proven record to be a champion for children, and I am that leader. I hope that you will vote for me, consider me, go to my website, and come out and vote on June 2nd. Well, not come out and vote, mail your ballots in. But I just want to make certain that we have people that are elected, that are committed to all of our students in all of our schools, in all of our classrooms. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Cameron.
Hi, I'm Cameron Rhode. I've been volunteering politically for 12 years, since January 2008. So I'm the youngest candidate in the at-large race. But don't let my age fool you, because I'm also one of the most experienced. So since January 2008, I've had really great conversations with students and parents and teachers all over Montgomery County about education issues. Sometimes it's issues that are unique to them that I might have only heard about from 15 or 20-minute conversations on a stranger's porch. So listening is what I do. I'm not going to stop anytime soon. My cell phone number is 240-994-9347. You're welcome to contact me anytime. I look forward to hearing from you. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Cameron. Anil.
So, Reverend, first of all, thank you so much for hosting. This was definitely fun. What I would like to leave your audience with is that I believe that I am the only candidate here who has a proven record at the national and international level, to include setting up a school system in a combat zone in Iraq. And that sort of results-driven leadership and executive oversight during crisis is what I bring to this table that is valuable right now and is what MCPS needs right now going forward. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, sir, and thank you for your service. Stephen Austin.
Okay, thanks. And just want to reiterate why I'm running: transparency, accountability, and true community involvement back to the BOE. I believe that we can improve all the schools and serve all the students and their families, and we can do a great job at that. Now, I touched upon it, and I'll touch upon it again. We're going to have some budget problems going into next year, and we are going to have to make some hard decisions. And I think I want to appeal to the voters that I'm a professional at this. I look at income statements and balance sheets on a daily basis, and I have cut expenses in my past life without impacting service. And that's what we're going to have to do if we can keep maintaining this goal of educating all of our children. And I hope you'll vote for me on June 2nd. I'm the second name on the ballot. If you can't remember, think of the wrestler, Stone Cold Steve Austin, or the $6 Million Man.
Thank you, Steve Solomon.
All right, thank you, Reverend, and to Anita and the church for putting this together. Any opportunity we get to talk to the public, I enjoy. So again, I'm Steve Solomon, running for District 4, not at large, District 4. There's many of us here, so please remember that. District 4. My career has been as a radio and podcast host and producer. I spend all day talking to people and about things, and I'm also a good listener because I have to listen to what other people say to me. So I think that's a quality you want in one of your Board of Education members. Just today, I talked to someone for half an hour who read about me, saw about me, and wanted to tell me what he thought about something, and I was happy to talk to him about that. So I hope to earn your vote by mail before June 2nd. Go to votestevesolomon.com for all the stuff about me and my platform, and I thank you for your time today.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Thomas.
Hi there. Thank you, Reverend, to you and your community for the invitation for this forum and working it out so we all could present or get to know your membership. So as a parent volunteer in MCPS for 11 years, I've worked alongside educators, administrators, and students. If elected to the board, I would continue the collaboration among educators, administrators, and our students, and just ensuring that each student receives the best education so they can, he or she, attain their personal the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Lynne Harris.
Yes, thank you again for putting on this virtual forum. It's helping all of us do our homework in this strange time. And even though we only got to 2 questions this evening, each one of those raised so many other issues and challenges and priorities that we could have spoken about each one of them for hours, not just a minute or 2. And I think that raises the unique issue of the necessity of having someone assume the seat at the board table who already has a deep and wide understanding of our school system and can also look, not only comes with that deep and wide knowledge, but it can also look at every issue confronting our school system through multiple lenses. And as mentioned, I do bring the perspective of a lawyer, of a nurse, of a public health professional, of an experienced teacher in MCPS, and a longtime volunteer advocate. And I hope you'll consider voting for me on June 2.
Thank you, ma'am. Michael Fryer.
Hi, Michael Fryer, michaelfryer.com. I've had over 30 years of experience in education, not just as a classroom teacher, but also as a social worker, as an attorney and advocate, a programmer, et cetera, goes on. I mean, even recently when I moved to Montgomery County, I coached flag football. We'll see what happens this summer. I was teaching an after-school science program, and I was teaching Monday nights ESL here in Gaithersburg, ESL class for adults. So education is not something that happens to other people. It's something that I have been involved in my entire life and always will continue to be. And I bring that holistic approach to education to the board, that kids are not just, like sitting in a classroom. There is an entire picture that goes to them, and that is the value that I bring. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Paul Geller.
Thank you very much, Reverend Moultrie, for putting this together, and certainly to Anita Powell and the Lincoln Park Historical Foundation. Thank you for all you do. You have a very unique neighborhood. It certainly is steeped in a lot of great tradition for over 100 years. And I want you to know that you've seen me in your neighborhood in the past, and you'll see me there even more in the future. Being on the Board of Education is a great responsibility. You need to be able to listen to people, and you also need to be able to take action and form coalitions. Now, I usually do this under the radar because I want things to get done. When we had some issues at the new Maryvale Sandburg, where they have no daycare, been trying to work with the city of Rockville to make sure that situation is rectified. I will get involved in any and all issues to benefit our students. And I thank you all, and I wish you all good health.
Thank you so much. Dalvin.
Thank you, Reverend, and thank you, Miss Anita, for putting this together. This went off without a hitch. We've been on like 30 Zoom meetings in the last week, and they've all been bad. So hats off to you guys. So, like I said, I am a former teacher, foster care social worker, current program manager. I manage budgets on a daily basis, but I've also been in the classroom. So I've heard directly from my students. I've worked with principals, administrators, teachers. I bring that unique balance to this specific role. I have a 2-year-old daughter who will attend MCPS in the near future. And I view this run as an investment into her future. And I'm asking you for your vote because I'm asking you to trust me to be the champion for your stories with the thing that is most dear to you in your life, your kids. And I look forward to earning your vote over the next few weeks as we have more of these forums. And please vote for me on June 2nd.
Thank you so much, sir. Jay Guan.
So first, thank you, Aaron, for setting this up. It certainly is one of the better run virtual meetings that I've had over the past week or so. The thing I want to say is that in the face of this pandemic, I think we need unity more than ever. I'm tired of the same old us versus them conversation when it comes to education. The division, the polarization, and the lust for blood is not who we are. Simply because we disagree with each other, we do not have to be mortal enemies. We're better than this. I'm here today not as a politician, but as someone who genuinely cares about education and our future. I'm here today because I'm a parent who wants a bright future for all of our kids. There is a brave new world approaching, and the only way we get there is together. My name is Jay Guan for Board of Education at Large. Future-ready education, community schools, innovative education method.
Thank you, sir. Mitra.
Reverend, thank you so much. And Anita, thank you so much for this opportunity, for organizing this. I am a parent at Montgomery County Public School. I have years of advocacy experience. I have been an educator, and I am a primary care physician. I feel we are at a critical time in having the existing challenges and right now of addressing students' health and social needs, improving cultural competency of schools, and transforming our educational system. But in addition, on top of that, we now have the challenge of the coronavirus that has caused learning loss. It has affected the emotional well-being of our children and has had huge economic burden on families. We need someone on the board who has the leadership, who has fresh, innovative ideas, who is data-driven and a collaborative problem solver. We can do better.
Thank you. Your time is up.
Thank you.
Thank you. Rebecca.
Sorry, yes, thank you. I too want to thank all of you for putting this together and giving us this opportunity. This is obviously only a short glimpse of who I am and who we all are. Clearly 1 minute is not enough to let anybody really know too much. But I have dedicated myself to being a strong voice and advocate for our students. It's our staff and our schools. I serve as the chair of our Special Populations Committee. And as that, I know and understand the special needs of our community. I am the mother of 2 young MCPS graduates, and I spend a lot of time in our schools and in our community hearing from people and really trying to be able to be that voice that they need. I am always available for anyone. I would love to take you up on your opportunity to get together sometime and continue these conversations, however that ends up working out. I've been very proud to represent your voice and be an advocate for this community and this county. And I look forward to continuing that work together as we move forward through all of this.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all of your comments and all of the information that you have shared. Your views and opinions are important to this process. And I don't speak lightly. Unfortunately, I put my foot in my mouth quite often, and I'm going to do it again right now. I am willing to, we have a YouTube channel, we have cameras and microphones. We can only have 10 people in a gathering, but we can get together right here with cameras and we can put it on YouTube. And maybe we can do it based on at large and then the districts. But we can arrange to do this every week until the election so that people know what is important. And so send me an email and let me know your thoughts. And if you're interested in doing that, I've got a team of people that are really giving me a hard time right now because they don't like that idea. But this is important. Our children are important. And I think that the Bible says that our treasure is we put our treasure where our heart is. And if we don't pay teachers, if we don't spend money to have a stellar education system, we're not doing good by our children. I'm going to get out of the way and let Anita Neal Powell offer you some comments. Thank you very much. And I pray God's blessings on each of you. Stay safe.
Thank you.
You too. Stay safe, stay well.
Hello, everyone. It's a great opportunity to see you all. You all look beautiful, and you all will be elected on June 2nd. I am more sure of that of anything else. And good evening. We would like to thank each of you for your time and your participation to share with our viewers your perspective of being elected for the office you have selected. The purpose of this forum is to educate our voters on the candidates of their choice, and also is to remind you that this forum is being recorded. It's being hosted, as you can see, by Mount Calvary Baptist Church, and it can be viewed at your leisure and to share with others, such as your community, the churches, and most definitely with your family members. And we want to ask you, and you may do it or you may not, vote for yourself on June 2nd. And with that, we would like to turn it back over to Reverend Moultrie, I think. Well, we're going to run the scrolls. And this has been a wonderful opportunity for us, not just for you, but for us as viewers as well as voters. This is the first time a forum has been put on Zoom to try to get to know who you are and to who we would like to vote for. And so we thank you so very much. Is Reverend Moultrie going to come back? Hold on. This is called a station break. Do you want to roll here?
So we are done for the evening. With this forum, we're going to move right into a forum for the circuit court judges. I hope this has been beneficial to each of you. And if we can be of any service to you here at Mount Calvary, don't hesitate to give me a call.
Thank you, Reverend Moultrie.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Stay
Thank
well.
you. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. You guys have a good evening.
You as well. Bye.